Hello and welcome to chapter 12 of Bookish Babes After Dark. I feel like we've got to do that every time now. On today's episode, we are discussing Lifers by K.C Blume. We even have something very exciting for today's episode. We will be interviewing K.C themselves to discuss the book. So we are incredibly excited. First of all, we will do the usual mumbo jumbo. We're going to start with triggers, and just to warn you, buckle up. There are quite a few. This may take
there are quite a few in this one.
Yeah, it may take a few minutes. So we have suicide, self-harm, mentions of blood, murder, mentions of miscarriage, mentions of murder-suicide, depression, bipolar and multiple personality disorders, rape, sexual assault, PTSD, orgasm during sexual assault/rape by medical professional, electroshock therapy, panic attacks, negative self-image, religious rhetoric, possessive/jealous partner, unprotected sex, heterosexual sex, that was a lot of words, sex in exchange for goods, mentions of murder during sexual intercourse, mentions of self-harm during sexual intercourse, thigh-riding, rough blowjob, knife play, blood play, mutilation, edging, voyeuristic/semi-public sex, mentions of masturbation, penetration with an object, and orgasm denial. That was a lot to say in one go. And I also realised how many bloody spelling mistakes I made when I was typing that out.
Never mind.
Took me a minute to get there, but it's fine.
We got there in the end.
We did. So we have the blurb. Riley. Nearly everyone who enters Aylesbury leaves in one way or another, but I am the one constant. I am always here. I continue to remain. Time doesn't pass in days between these walls, it passes in people. The girl with the peach-pink hair, who I loved in my head but never got the chance to speak to. The boy that swung from the stairwell because he couldn't love himself enough. Until Blair steps out the back of that ambulance, time stops then. Her wrists are wrapped in gauze and her lips are bloodied, but she's more alive than anything else I've seen in some time. Dr. Demosi warns me that I'm fixating again, but what we have is real. I can feel it. The closer we get, the more I start to believe what they say about how I landed here. I could do it again too, if it means she won't leave me. Blair, if you told me 3 days ago I would still be breathing today, I wouldn't believe you. If you followed that with the knowledge that I'd find something close to love at Aylesbury Psychiatric Institution, I'd say you're full of shit. It's not written into my DNA. I'm incapable of it, right? Riley is beautiful. Riley is beautiful in a macabre sort of way, with her dark, dead eyes and her hollow cheeks. Her voice is raspy and scratches my fucked up brain just right, like a number 2 pencil against grainy college ruled paper. She's more like me than maybe I am myself, more out of her mind than I think she realises. I could happily live in delusion with her forever, but there's one problem. I'm getting better. Every day I work toward getting better with hopes of being released while Riley is a lifer. Content with swimming in the pool of her illness for eternity, refusing to admit to what she did that landed her here in the first place. Once I find out what that is, it changes everything. As always, we're going to do our overall ratings and review. Just a quick one before we start asking K.C questions. So, Jordan, what did you rate the book? And just a quick overview of what you thought.
I gave it a 4 because I absolutely loved it. You know, it was very... it was one of them, as soon as I opened the book, it hit me in the face. Even just from, the dedication, I was like, this is going to hurt me and I'm going to love it. It really touched on, you just want to be loved for your mental health, whatever issues that is. And that really resonated with me, all the way through. And it was such a good storyline. And then even when I got to the end, I was like, I need more. What? It's just ended. I need to go further. So it did keep me, my attention was just very much there, even from start to finish. I rinsed through it. So yeah, I absolutely loved it.
K.C will be coming back and asking about that ending. I feel the exact same. So I also rated it a 4. I think it was my first sapphic romance, and I didn't really know what to expect because, again, we won't get into too many questions because we're going to bring these up later, but I was very pleasantly surprised at how much I connected with it.
Yeah.
And I think when you've got a book that's written about mental health, sometimes you can think, oh, well, because there's so many varying different types of mental health disorders as well. And when you specifically maybe haven't been diagnosed with one that you're reading about, you kind of think you're not going to relate. But I found I related to it so much that it was incredible. I gave it 4 stars purely for the fact of that this I have so many questions still that
Yeah.
I don't have answers to. So yeah, Ellie, what were your thoughts?
I rated it 4.5. I absolutely loved it. It was my first sapphic. I fell in love with Blair and Riley pretty much straight away, and sort of the depths within sort of like the mental health sort of themes and topics that were surrounded by that were in the book. I really connected to, and it got to a point where I was sort of reading it, and I was like, these are becoming a little bit too personal. Um, why is this book talking so loud? But no, I absolutely loved it, and I just can't wait to recommend it to other people
Mm.
and shout about it, because you don't really get that sort of representation currently. From what I've noticed and from what I've read and what I've seen recommended, I don't really get any sort of like sapphic Rex or sort of like
No.
Rex where you've still got the spice in the plot, but you've also got sort of heavier themes running through it, such as mental health.
Mm.
Definitely, 100%.
Thanks. Thank
So
you guys so much. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Thank you guys. I appreciate that.
you're very welcome. What we'll do is, so we've got like a list of questions that we want to ask you, but we'll probably also just kind of off the cuff
Yeah.
ask stuff based on what you answer. But what we will say is like we've got some questions where if you don't want to answer them, just let us know and we can like
Yeah.
obviously cut them out, because we are going to ask you sort of, about why you've written the book and any mental health issues that you've had that have inspired it and stuff like that. So if you're not comfortable at any point talking about anything, just let us know and
Yeah.
we will just cut that question out completely.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
absolutely fine.
Right. Go.
So, I'm asking the first question
It
now.
is.
Yeah, you're the first one.
First, I'm very like starstruck slash
Oh.
can't believe that this is really
Please
happening.
don't be. Please don't be. This was my first release, and I feel like such a little like baby author, but it's done much better than I expected. So I feel like starstruck that everyone has been like embracing me the way that they have.
Oh, that's so lovely.
Mhm.
I
I
think
do.
it's really special as well that we're interviewing you for your like debut novel, because I feel
Yeah.
like we're all about supporting indie authors and all that kind of
Mm.
stuff. So for us, it's really special that we've got you on.
Yeah. That we get to have the chance to like shout it out there, because like Ellie said before, like some of the books that we've read previously, like they do touch on the mental health aspect, but not in a really deep way where you sort of feel like you're reading about yourself. Like
Yeah,
someone's gone into your brain and gone, I'm going to write about this.
I think a lot of the time,
So,
I think some authors probably are too scared to, because I think
yeah.
of the backlash that they might have.
Yeah, and I
So
think it's quite ballsy for someone to take whatever's going on in here to write it, and put it into these characters and then put it out there, because that takes quite a lot of vulnerability, because even having mental health issues is quite sort of taboo still. People don't really want to put a label on it, they don't really want to speak about it. So I think when it comes to reading about it, it gives you that satisfaction of like, oh, I'm not on my own. There might just be characters at the end of the day, but they're still relatable. Whoever picks it up and reads it, they can still relate to it somehow.
yeah,
So
definitely.
I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, me too.
Thank you.
So, first question for
Yeah.
our listeners: can you sum up the book in your own words, like briefly? Sort of like if you were going to sell it to someone, how would you
Hmm.
describe it?
I would say that it's about two young women that meet in a psychiatric facility. Both of them are unwell. One of them's there for life. One of them, her time is as short as she wants it to be. But because of their conflicting mental health disorders, they very quickly become enamored with each other and sort of exasperate and embrace each other's flaws at the same time. And so it kind of causes like a, I don't know, like a tornado of emotion um, that ends very abruptly. That's why it's a novella. But it ends kind of how it's supposed to at the same time.
Yeah,
Oh,
I like that. When it does come to that ending, it is one of them where can you expect a happily ever after from it?
Yeah.
You know, being in this situation, is that something that you sort of can expect when hindsight you can't? So it is relatable, like that.
and it's real as well, isn't it? Because
Mm,
how many times in your life have you had a relationship or something's happened where there is no happy ending?
Mhm.
yeah.
Well,
Definitely.
So yeah. Woo! Okay, and it's your turn, I think.
Yeah. So we'd love to know sort of like what was your inspiration behind the book?
there were a few like media inspirations that I had, specifically Girl Interrupted, the film and the book. Um, love those so much. And also American Horror Story Asylum. Um, that whole like Kit and Grace, their situation, I did love them a lot. And I went back and watched Girl Interrupted, and it is a little bit sapphic if you
Mm.
like really get into Lisa, and I cannot remember the other girl, Winona Ryder's character's name. It is a little bit sapphic, but that's not the premise of the book and movie. So definitely those, and then on top of that, um, my mom has been institutionalized multiple times. So touching on the feminist aspect of it, because she's never gotten proper care in these facilities. Touching on the feminist aspect of it, how women are not treated fairly in facilities like this, was also a big inspiration.
Hmm.
Very
Hope that sums it
interesting.
up.
Yeah,
Yeah, that
because you
was
can
like
see that. Like the way I saw it in the book is, you know, in like Orange is the New Black, when you get like women inmates, and then they obviously have to do these sexual favors for other people to get certain things, you know, and it is quite like degrading that you have to that women themselves have to put themselves in that position
Yeah.
to get the things they want. So obviously reading it, and then obviously you going back to your personal experience or where the inspirations come from, it is very true to life, you know, and it's
Mhm.
Tell you
yeah.
what, it really shocked me. It's not
I don't.
necessarily the nurse guy;
Mm.
I'm so sorry.
it was the
Yeah.
doctor.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. So I visualize him a lot as the like big male like psychiatrist experimental dude in American Horror Story.
Yeah.
Um,
yeah.
so he was a big inspiration from that, and he was also, this is a lot of personal information. He also was sort of taken from a much older guy that definitely like groomed me when I was like 17, 18 years old. So I was like, I need to make him as like creepy and unappealing as possible. So I hope that that works out.
It came
Yeah.
across that
You
way.
You
did.
did.
You did.
I think you nailed it on that one.
Yeah. So you got the vibe straight away, didn't you? As soon as you was
Yeah.
introduced to him, you were like, I know he's not
Mm.
right.
Yeah.
He's a red flag, and not in a good
Yeah.
way.
Not the nice red flags.
No. But
Love it.
yeah, it's just see, you've left me with the heavy question now. Which straight on me, but it is in the if we're just putting it bluntly, is the mental health issues that you have dealt with previously or are currently dealing with that you've put into the book from your own sort of personal experience.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mentioned that my mom has been institutionalized a few times, and she'll like that's not a secret. She'll say that. She has bipolar disorder, and she has it under control now, but there's been times where she hasn't.
Mm.
And then her mom has bipolar disorder. And by proxy, when I started dealing with a lot of my mental health issues, I immediately went and saw a psychiatrist and was like, if you try to tell me that I have bipolar disorder, I will ignore that diagnosis, leave here, and go on my merry way. I'm not doing
Mm.
it. And I don't have bipolar disorder, but I have bipolar disorder tendencies because that's what I was raised around. So aside from that, I do have like depression, anxiety, and OCD. So I definitely wanted those to be represented in the book.
Mm.
And then the other ones, narcissistic personality disorder, borderline personality disorder is very. I deal with that one a lot in my personal life because of people close to me. And then there was another one that was big. Anorexia was one of them in the book, and not anorexia, but just like eating disorders.
Mm.
And I believe pathological lying was one. But yes, all of those at some point or another have been a big part of my life.
Yeah. So I think when we had our call to plan the episode out,
Yeah.
we all spoke about how, even us three, we don't have any of the, the big ones like bipolar or anything like that. We just mainly suffer with like anxiety, depression, or, I'll let the girls talk about their own. But for me, I really connected to the eating disorder part of it.
Mm.
Um, because I've got binge eating disorder, which here in the UK isn't really recognised as an eating disorder. It is, but not to the same level as anorexia and bulimia. And I didn't get any help because obviously here in the UK we get the NHS, so unless we pay privately, we only get what they offer.
Yeah.
And they say that because with binge eating disorder, because you tend to be overweight rather than underweight, you're not at risk health wise.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, the stigma that you face being an overweight person actually puts so much stress on your body that it does cause you a physical, you know,
Yeah.
effects. And so, but alongside that, obviously, anxiety, depression are all things that I've dealt with throughout my life, right from being a child. So when I say this book hit home in so many different ways, like even though I couldn't relate to very specific parts of it, I could relate to a lot of it, and it's definitely, I wish more authors had the balls to
Yeah.
write what you've written.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
And it like I've touched previously, it takes a lot to deal with what you deal with and
mhm,
put it out there for people, and just hope to God that nobody comes for the throat when you've said something that is a bit like,
Yeah.
oh, should I have said that, should I have written that, but then and it comes back tenfold that everyone has related to it in some kind of way, whether it's like the tiniest bit or they've read the full book and it's been every single page. There's always a bit where it's like, oh, like that really hurt me,
mhm.
but I really enjoyed it because I needed the truth.
Yeah.
I've had actually like a lot of people, because I've responded to pretty much all messages that I get on Instagram. I've had so many people saying like, I can't believe, you wrote this. No one ever writes things like this. Like, um, it was really dark, which to me, it doesn't feel very dark, but I guess
No.
because like I deal with it so often, and it didn't click to me when I was writing it that, oh, this is something that people like need to hear, or this is something that needs to be like heavily represented. It wasn't like I was trying to like make a point when I was writing it. It just was like I was in the middle of writing another book, and this book just like came forward, and I was like, well, I'm not going to be able to write anything else until I finish this, and that's just how it
I
ended.
have to give in.
So to like be getting that response automatically from people that from something that like came so like naturally from me has been so heartwarming, and I appreciate it so much from everybody.
I think
Well, it's,
that probably highlights even more, doesn't it? That the fact that people are reacting the way that they're reacting, when for you, you didn't write it because there was a gap in the market. You wrote it because you wanted to write it. Yet people have said, oh, wow, like there's nothing like this out there. Just shows that, there is a gap
Yeah.
that, does
Definitely.
need to be plugged.
Mm.
And it's like I really sort of connected with Blair in it, just from sort of the depression side of things and the anxiety side of things, but then also with the fact that from what I got from it, that she was using sort of like sex as some of like self-harm.
Hmm.
And like I've been there, done that, and I was reading it and I was like, is this me? Is this me in character form? What? But like the representation within the book was just absolutely brilliant. But also sort of how Blair says she's like, I am a lesbian. However, I do sort of will use my body to sort of get what I want. And like I've been there. Sort of sexuality is a confusing thing anyway, especially when sort of you're going through sort of your teenage years and then into your early 20s type of thing. Everything's confusing. But honestly, reading this, it was like I remember sort of being like that and
Yeah.
having that confusion. But it was so nice to read, but then also the truth bombs hurt quite a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad you bring up Riley because I was actually trying to make a point with her specifically because, and I've only had one person reach out to me about this, is that you do see a lot of like depression characterized as like crying and like you can't eat or you overeat or, like your emotions are so heightened and all this stuff. And with Blair, her emotions were gone. She could not care about anybody. Like if she hurt herself, it didn't matter. She wasn't she wasn't sad per se. She was more just like emotionless. And like that's how my depression presents itself. So I did feel very underrepresented in media as far as like, oh, this person has depression, but why don't I have depression like that? Like, why,
Yes.
yeah, like, why, like, I have a big issue forming like emotional connections with people because of my depression. And I definitely wanted her to represent that side that I don't see in media very often.
Yeah.
Mm.
Because depression can make you numb, so you don't feel anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's very two, it's a very two-headed coin. That there is the one side where, you know, you can't stop crying and you're constantly upset and things like that. And then there's the flip side where emotions just aren't a thing, and you find it so hard to, you know, put your feelings to someone because even you don't know how to deal with them and you don't know how to describe them. So when someone says to you, are you feeling all right? And it's just, yeah, I'm fine,
Yeah.
and you sort of got to take it at face value.
That reminds me so much of something that I said at work the other day, because us Brits are horrendous for, oh, hi, are you all right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
I know my wife's dad says it to me all the time, and when I first heard it, I was like, "What are you talking about? Yeah, I'm fine." And then he
Yeah.
was like, "No, like, how are you?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah, I'm good." What? Like, sorry, I've never heard
I'm just fine.
The funny thing is, so I was a mental health first aider at work, and the funny thing that we were taught was, how many people actually want to hear the answer to that question and the genuine answer to that question? And now every time I say it, I stop myself because I'm like, say it properly or don't say it at all.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I just that what you said, Joe, then just reminded me of that, and I thought it was
Yeah.
funny. But
Because it's just such a thing to say, isn't it? Like,
yeah,
you could be having like the shittiest day, and someone says, "Oh, are you all right?" Yeah, I'm fine.
yeah,
Yeah,
fine.
totally fine. Whereas in your head, it's just going.
Yeah. So I think that was a nice little segue into the next question, which is more we are going to select a quote that we relate to, and we're going to say why, and then we would like you to do the same, if that's okay.
Select a quote.
Yeah, so we've each got a quote that we relate to. So you can either kind of have a quote, or you can just say a section of the book that you relate to. But we'll start first, and then we'll come to you after
Okay.
you've heard ours. So mine is, you've just got more emotions than your beautiful body can handle sometimes. And I relate to that so deeply. Like, when I read the dedication, I thought, right, I'm gone. Because
Yeah.
that dedication in itself, like, I didn't even need to read the book after that. I was like, this is a good book, this. But when I read that, it summed me up so much. And I think in my entire life, I've always been told that I just had too many emotions, and I just couldn't deal with things. And even as a child, you know, it was the same thing. It was like, why are you always crying? Why? And, I've always been described as this person that will give anybody anything, because I can relate, I can empathize with people almost too much, where I take their emotions on. And I think a lot of the time people see me as weak for that reason, whereas I see that as a strength, because there are not many people that can deal with the stuff that I've been through and still be as helpful and as unselfish and as giving as I am. And I think my emotions make me me, and they make me special. And sometimes I do have more emotions than I can handle. And I think being female, especially, like just biologically, our hormones definitely have more than I can handle. But yeah, I just related to that so much. And I just think it was almost like that was the bit where I was like, you're literally writing about me.
Mm-hmm.
So, Ellie, you want to go next?
Yeah, so my quote is, people think of depression as a cold, lonely place inside of your mind, but it isn't always. Sometimes it's warm, like an electric blanket. It feels like sitting inside a cottage in a woods, curled up next to a crackling fire, with a purring cat sitting on your lap. It's nice for a little while. It becomes familiar. And as soon as I read it, I actually started crying, because I was like, it feel like the sort of emotions and just sort of the way that it's described. I was like, that's how mine feels. Like, that's how I feel with it. Like, it's not cold. I just want to be curled up, and I want to stay there for a while. I don't want to come out. But sort of trying to convey that and tell people that is so hard, because it's hard to put into words. It's like I can feel myself sort of somewhat welling up now, because like, just to be able to sort of describe that to someone, to be like, no, I am okay, not mentally okay, but I'm feeling better because I'm in my safe space. I'm in
Yeah.
my little, what I call my depression pit. So but I really, really, really resonated with that one quote, and sort of I read it and I was like, yep, time to put the book down for a little bit, have a little bit of a cry,
I'm
I'll
just
come
gonna,
back.
I'll shed a quick tear and then I'll come back to it.
Yeah, just like
I'll
give
go
me
around the block
give me
and come
five.
back again. So, George, what
Oh.
about you?
Oh, mine sort of sits with Ellie's as well. So it's all I want to do is lay in bed. That's all I've wanted since the lows hit. It's my safe haven and my comfort place. And I just thought to myself, I'm like, if that's not me, I don't know what is. Like, everyone's got their own safe sort of space, whether, it's at home or it's in a person or anything like that. You just want to stay there and until like the dark clouds disappear. But I get it really well. Like, I'm a mum of two, but sometimes I don't want to do that, and I don't want a parent, I don't want to be a partner, I don't want to do anything like this. And then all of a sudden you start to feel yourself like, oh, I shouldn't feel that way. But then it's, you constantly get told, you've got all these things, you've got kids, you've got a family. And sometimes it's just like, I just want to be on my own.
Yeah.
Like, I just want to sit in my feelings and just leave me there, shut the door on your way out. But yeah, you just go, I'll sit here and I'll be fine, once I've had a quick sob and I've had my body weight and everything.
I can
It'll
relate.
be fine. Yeah, but it really just hit me and I was like, yeah, I agree. And I was just like, highlight. I must take note.
Casey, do you have a quote?
So I've actually been going through right now and annotating. So I'm rereading my own writing right now, and it's like the strangest feeling.
I
Um,
can imagine.
so I think mine is in the prologue, and I think it's the last quote or the last like few sentences. It says, "Death is a dreamless, smothering warmth. It's the most protected I've felt in years, and it's all the love I've been searching for." And I think so. When I was oh gosh, probably 13, I did try to commit suicide, and I was like almost successful. And I like blacked out at one point, and you would expect it to be like scary or nerve wracking to think like, okay, well, this is the end. And there are some elements that made it scary, but when I was like blacking out, it was like being lulled out to sea on a warm boat, like just covered in warmth and safety, and no one can hurt you here. And now you're
Oh,
finally all alone, just like how you want. And definitely that, because it was just kind of like, okay, well, now I get what I want, and this is everything that I've expected it to be and more. So, and that's obviously not to promote suicide or anything. It was just sort of like in the moment, I didn't know what else to do, and this was the best option. And given my circumstances, that option ended up feeling better than the circumstances that I was living with.
Because I guess everybody's intention. I,
Hmm.
I mean, obviously, I assume because can't say for everybody, but I know for myself. I've considered and got very close to committing suicide also, and
Mhm.
for me, try not to cry now. I just wanted it to stop,
Yeah.
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 and I think most people that I've spoken to that have felt the same have just wanted the same thing, and I
Hmm.
think that, like you say, it's not promoting suicide in any way, and but that quote, yeah, perfectly sums up that it just stops and you reach that safe place.
Hmm.
Hmm.
And if people were able to find that in life, they wouldn't seek it in
Yeah.
any way. And I
Yeah.
think, it's important that, you know, I can say now that I found that place in other means. And now, I've managed to deal with stuff enough that I know that I just need to do, my certain set of things, and then I'll find that place and it's all okay. But I guess that's a wish that we all have in life, is that everybody can
Hmm.
find that, so nobody ever feels like they have to take that route. Um, so yeah, that
Yeah. But I think that's what reading does to you, don't it? Like if
yeah,
you are feeling like that, it's a big escape for a lot of people.
huge.
It's you want to jump out of this world and into one that has no issues. It's everything's how you want it to be. And I think that's why a lot of people, even when they start reading from an early age, and it sticks with you through life then, and if you can find that genre that you're into, it don't matter what it is, you can just shut off from this life and jump straight into another one, and it's just nice and it's
Yeah.
quiet and
You get
it's
to
a
you get to live 1,000 lives while living one.
yeah, yeah. And that's like one of the biggest quotes that I think all of us, whether you're a reader or a writer, you can live these whole different lives within the pages of books. And yeah, I'm getting quite emotional.
Books are amazing. Just saying.
Yeah.
Ellie, I think it's you next.
It
Mm.
is. So we'd just love to know sort of what made you start writing, sort of like what
So
started
I
it.
I love this question so much. I've never not been a writer. I've always, since I was a child, been a writer. And my mom, I like to say that me and my mom are like cut from the same cloth because we both have a lot of mental illness and we're both really creative. And I think the two kind of go hand in hand
Mm.
most of the time. But my mom is a big creative and she always wrote tons of poems. Um, and so I would see her like write poems and she would read them to me and stuff. And I'd be like, oh, well, I'm going to write my own poems. And I'd write them down and she'd hang them up on the fridge and she would like submit them to like children's magazines for me and stuff. And they would get like published in children's magazines, which was the cutest, like coolest thing as like a 7-year-old, you know? And so it's never been like, it was never something that I was like, had to learn or kind of be introduced to. It was just natural and always there. And then I probably took, let me say this, and then as I got into my like teenage years, I learned about fan fiction, loved it, still love it to this day, and wrote fan fiction on like AO3 and Wattpad and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And then took like I don't know, maybe like a 5-6 year break from fan fiction. And then when I got back into fan fiction, I met my wife. And we met on AO3, and she lives in the UK. She lives in Manchester. Um,
That's
and
where
so,
we are.
oh, yeah, she's in Manchester. Um, so we met, and we were like, let's go like on a, we were just like best friends at the time, whatever. We were like, let's go on a little like writing like vacation so we can start writing our first, novels. We just got together, like we just ended up getting together. So that put a delay on the novels. And then like a year later I was like, I'm gonna finish the novels thing. So it's never been like it's never not been there. It's just always sort of been part of my life.
It was never a conscious decision. It's just
Yeah.
something that you always grew up with.
Mm.
I love that.
That's so
really sweet.
lovely.
No. But yeah, it's one of them where it's always been like here, and then it's one of them where you can just dip back into it and things like that. And I've always said to myself, oh, I'd love to write, but then I'm like, I can't even think of words.
No, yeah, literally. I'm the same. I would love to write a book. In fact, I said this on a podcast episode that we filmed a few weeks ago. I don't know. Does someone ever teach you, as a writer,
how to write?
Not the actual English part, but like, how the hell do you keep a story in your mind? And like, especially when you read like a book where there's like little Easter eggs of everything like all throughout. And I'm like, do you write the end before you write the beginning so you know what you're already going to write? Or it's just chaos in my mind. I have no idea how you do it. Honestly,
I start at the end. So I start with
mental.
the beginning, and then honestly, like, and I'll talk about my wife all day long, but I'll like just turn to her and be like, "Hear me out," and then I'll like waffle my story idea to her, and she's like, "Okay, are you gonna write that down?" And I'm like, "No, it's all up here," and
No.
I just keep
It's
it up
all
there.
safe.
Yeah, right here. But I don't need a pen and paper. I've got it. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I couldn't do that because, as the girls know, I have a horrific memory. Like, it's an ongoing joke because most of the time, before we started doing the podcast, once I finished a book, I can't recall what happened. So I could read it again and it'd be like the first time. I'm getting better now that we're like annotating and we're talking about them. I'm getting better, but if I was a writer, I'd be there voice noting myself as soon as I thought about something. Like, you've got to remember this.
Note to self: do not lose this.
This one's really important.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah. So this is our first sapphic romance between us all. And do you think there's enough representation in the book sort of community? Because when we read, it is predominantly male-female, or there's a lot of male-male. So this is sort of like the first time I've been like, oh, like I'm into this.
Yeah.
Women.
So I do.
The women.
just opened up the door for you, like you're questioning your
Yeah.
sexuality now. So I do not think that there is enough sapphic romance representation at all in the book community, especially in the dark romance community.
Mm.
Um, there's, like you said, there's a lot of male male romance, which is great. And there's a lot of even like queer romance where it's
Mm.
like, you know, bisexual couples that are in a like female male relationship. But as far as sapphic romances, you're really sort of limited to Liza James, like Eden Emery. There's really only a few names. Those are the only two that I'm actually familiar with. And I'm going to shoot myself in the foot saying that because there's tons of sapphic authors out there. I'm just not super familiar with them. Um, and so we definitely need more representation for that. And I think what the issue is, because I was concerned about this too, is that you have a great story idea and you have these cool characters in your head, but then you think, well, if I make them both like female presenting, then my book's not going to do as good. Whereas if I made them female male, it'll take off.
Yeah,
Mm.
see, it's quite interesting. It's quite an interesting subject for me because I am as heterosexual as they come. Like I've never, I always describe myself as I appreciate the female form and I think females are brilliant. However, for me, I've just never been interested in a female sexually.
Yeah.
Mm.
I think it's really interesting how you've written it
Yeah.
because it's not in your face,
Mm-hmm.
and there's also heterosexual sex in there as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, like, for me, I really enjoyed it and I would want to read more having read your
Yeah.
book. However, I would have probably been a little bit nervous to read it beforehand because I didn't know what to expect purely because it's never spoken about. Like
Yeah.
the amount
Yeah.
of stuff on TikTok and Instagram, I mean, we read dark romance, really, really, really dark romance, and I've never, ever, ever seen anything like your book anyway, just in
Mm.
general, but also sapphic romance. It's always about a man in some capacity. It was
Mm-hmm.
really refreshing for me, and it's kind of taught me that I need to seek it out because I did really enjoy it, even being somebody that doesn't necessarily relate to the actual sapphic part of it,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is really interesting. And I think
Mm.
for that reason, that there should be more representation out there.
Especially sort of like for me, with it being my first sapphic, and sort of I'm now quite comfortable with my sexuality. Like I'm bi, but I love my partner, and I've fallen into the stereotypical I'm a bisexual girl that's fallen in love with a gamer guy.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, but sort of reading it and sort of now I'm like, I want to read more sapphic stuff because
Mm.
sometimes I don't want a man. I
Yeah.
just want the women.
Mm-hmm.
We just want the girls.
Just all I want.
Yeah.
If you guys like want to read another sapphic thing soon, Santana Knox just came out with a like queer romance. I believe it's a non-binary character and a female presenting character. That one's supposed to be really good. And a really dark one is The Madhouse by Liza James. So definitely those if you guys want to get into more sapphic romances.
Adding to
I've heard
TBR.
both of them. I've heard of
To the
both of
list.
them. Kindle.
To be fair, though, I probably have heard of sapphic romance. However, didn't realise because I'm not going to lie to you, I had to Google what sapphic meant. So now that I know what it means, I'll be
You
like,
know
right,
what you're looking for then. You know,
yeah,
you can sort of like breach out, and
yeah,
be like, is this specifically what I'm looking for? But
yeah. I
at the
can
end of the
Google.
day, like, regardless of the sexuality and things like that, they are just two people that, have found each other, and I don't think it matters what your sexuality is, what your gender is, what you prefer. They have found each other, whether it's in that, under that umbrella of where they've found each other, they've both found that comfort within each other. And even that was just nice to see that, they had that little snippet of happiness between them both. And then we got to the ending and I was gutted.
Speaking of the ending, is there going to be any more, or are you just leaving it as is?
So there I've had a lot of people ask me this, and if someone rated me 3 stars because they wish it was longer. So there was an additional scene. I don't want to call it like an epilogue or prologue. Getting those mixed up right now. There was an extra scene that showed how it like ended, like after Blair got out and all that stuff, and it's more depressing than how the book ended. Anyway, so I actually purposely left it out. Yeah, I purposely left it out because I didn't want to get like hate mail and like death threats from people that were upset with it. So there is an ending. It's not what you want, and I'm not going to go into detail because it's just going to make you sad. But so no, there's no more stories about Blair and Riley, unfortunately. I wish that there was.
I think the one thing that I really wish that we found out, and it infuriates me that we didn't, is exactly why Riley's there. Because you hinted at so many little things, but we never find out why. And I'm like, I need to know. I need to know.
Do you want me to tell you what happened?
Yeah.
In my brain, Riley and her girlfriend, I think her name was Meredith. They were breaking up. Like Meredith was breaking up with her, and Riley was like, "Absolutely not. That's not happening." And she sort of went into like a manic episode and killed her. But I don't know how it works in the UK, but over here you do have to, like, in order to plead the sanity defense, you have to have known at the time of the crime that what you were doing was wrong. And because she demonstrated when she opened the door to the police officers, like in the officer report notes, that she was just kind of like she didn't really know what was going on. They couldn't try her as sane, so she got an insanity defense and was put in Ellsbury instead.
Okay, that makes sense.
I feel better now. I know.
My brain can now be quiet.
I can sleep better at night now. Yeah.
There's so much backstory and lore to this that just like didn't really have a place in the book. Like there's really a lot. But it wouldn't have been a novella had I included it all, and I would have had to have included that extended ending that would have made everyone so much more depressed. So whenever people message me and they're like, "What was this about?" or like, "Can you tell me about this?" I'm like, "Yeah, this is what happened." So if you guys ever have any questions about that stuff, absolutely.
Brilliant. So your next book, do you have a release date for your next one?
I cannot tell you the release date yet. It is this fall, right in time for spooky season. It is a queer dark romance set in Appalachia. It's queer, but it's not sapphic necessarily. So I think that it'll be like, I think that it'll get a better response than Lafers has, which Lafers has gotten an amazing response. And it's a full length novel, which I'm super excited about. Like I'm knee deep in dev edits right now, and I've got my binder over there, and it is a fat binder. It's intimidating. So that's what I'm doing all summer long. But yeah, fall, right in time for spooky season, and it's going to be amazing. I'm so excited for you guys to read it.
Well, you'll have to, when you're allowed, you'll have to let us know the release date so we can shout out on the pod when it's coming out.
Absolutely. I will. I'm actually going to start advertising it and stuff this week. So keep an eye out for that.
I do love a spooky book. I do love a spooky book.
Ellie and Jordan were made for spooky season.
Yes. It is a ton of fun. It was supposed to come out around Christmas time, and then like Lafers happened, so that got pushed way back. It is awesome, you guys, and it really touches on if you have religious trauma. We are diving really deep into that with this book.
We love religious trauma.
Yeah, sign me up. Sign me up. Yeah.
We recently did That Sick Love on the
Yes,
podcast.
Yeah.
love that.
And when we say that is our Bible, we mean that is our Bible.
So I actually didn't finish that Sick Love because I was renovating my apartment while I was listening to it on Audible, and I was like, I am getting sweaty. I have to turn this off. So I like turned it off, didn't pick it back up. Can I ask a spoiler question?
Yeah.
Does she bone Saint?
Well, because this comes out after the episode, I feel like we can.
Yeah.
So,
Sort of.
sort of, in. So, essentially, Arrow. It starts.
Saint doesn't use himself to essentially bang her.
He uses a cross. He gets
Yeah.
a decorative cross and just.
Okay.
But he does boner after the cross.
After.
Because she gets ripped off her by
His dad, isn't it?
No, it's
No,
her brother.
Good for
Yeah.
her.
Because
So,
I
yeah.
know that book like the back of my hand now.
Yeah.
So like
I'm like 44% way like through it, and I wish that I could pick it back up. But I've been in such like a mood reader setting lately that I've been like finishing books halfway through, and not because they're bad, not because I don't like them, but almost because I don't want them to end. So I just am
Yeah.
like, okay,
yeah.
let's leave that there right now while it's still good.
Yeah. Yeah, That Sick Love, it was. I wasn't expecting it to be as good as it was, but it was so good. And I had no idea that it was full of religious trauma because I pick up books having no idea what they're about. And
Just going straight in.
so I'm very excited that your next one is full of religious trauma because I've found that it's something I like.
It's so I've actually I just got it back from my editor for Dev Edits, and she's awesome. I'm gonna be plugging her. She's also an author. I'm gonna be plugging her on my Instagram lately. One big thing, because I live in the South, like I live in the southeast of the U.S. I'm in Tennessee, so I'm in the heart of the Bible Belt, and I'm not religious, but I do have a certain like respect for all religions, because I was raised that way. One thing that I will say about it is that it does not disrespect religion in a way that Sick Love can kind of be portrayed as doing. Which, no hate to that. Loved it. Absolutely loved that book. But it very heavily touches on the religious trauma. And no, I'm not going to give a little spoiler for it because it'll piss people off. But yeah, it does touch on the religious trauma a lot, and there are a lot of queer characters in it.
I'm so excited.
Yes.
Exciting time.
I'm like already adding to the list. Unknown book, unknown date. K.C's releasing near Halloween. We are reviewing it on the pod.
So it's called Worship Me. It'll be out in the fall.
Wonderful.
Adding it to the list.
But we just like to say like thank you for being our first
Yeah.
author on our
Thank you
podcast.
so much. I appreciate it so much.
You're the first author that we've had on here, so this is still all very new to us. And sort of before you joined the call, you should have seen us all. We were shitting bricks.
You weren't okay. We logged on to this call at 4 p.m. You joined at 5 to 5.
I was going to message you guys at 4 and be like, actually, I'm ready right now if you guys want to go. So I'm so sorry.
It's fine. We were literally psyching ourselves up. We were like, we can do this. We can do this.
Yeah.
I think we feel a little bit, what's the word? It's like when you don't feel like you deserve it. Like you don't feel like you're...
We're not worthy.
What did you say,
imposter
K.C?
syndrome.
Yes, imposter syndrome, that's the one. Like, I don't feel like we're, like, good enough because we're just three girls that we met randomly through a book club. We had a chat, and then Ellie randomly just said, should we do a podcast? And we were all like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, why not?
It was a fever dream.
I think that your whole premise is, like, so set up for success, so I'm just, like, waiting for you guys to take off. I think that it's going to be no time at all. So I love it so much.
Oh, thank you. I'm
Thank
going to
you.
cry because that means the world. Honestly.
Do you
My,
guys plan on having like other authors on or anything?
We're hoping to reach out to some other authors. It's now just gaining the confidence to actually message
Yeah.
them.
I have like quite a few that would be willing to go on podcasts if you guys want me to like message them to you guys.
that would be amazing.
Send them over.
Yes.
I think part of the issue that we have is like, I hate it when people message me and say, "Oh, will you push this? Will you push this?" So, I feel like I don't want to message an author and say, "Oh, will you come on our podcast?" Because I don't know, it just seems pushy.
No, indie authors love it. No, do not feel pushy at all because indie authors are like waiting for that almost. Like they want to be so involved in the other aspects of the bookish community. Like we want to be on podcasts, we want to be in magazines, stuff like that. I did an interview for a magazine just the other week, and they approached me, and I was just so like I don't know. It makes you feel like you're doing something right. So definitely do not feel nervous reaching out to any other indie authors.
Right, that's it. We're gonna have to draft these emails now.
Let's
Yes.
get to
Honestly, thank you so much. I
Yeah.
really, really, really appreciate it. And the episode will release on the 6th of July, I think it is.
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, yeah, you guys don't be strangers. We're all best friends now. So
Yes.
Yes.
We're all friends here.
I think we figured. Was it the other day? Does it do shapes on this one? No,
No, it's not on here. It's on Instagram Live where you do the
Yeah.
heart. It like puts little hearts
It's
up.
the
It was
heart.
amazing, wasn't she? She's like, oh my god, the shapes.
And when you do this, for some reason, there's balloons. Don't know
Oh.
why. But there you go. But anyway,
Oh, well,
we will we'll let you go, Casey, and then we will do our very boring outro.
yeah.
all right. Well, thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it. It was so much fun.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. So thank you so much for listening to this episode. Thank you so much for Casey for being involved in this episode. If you want to keep up to date with us and check out for any sneak peeks and little bloopers that we post, you can catch us on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, and Spotify. Woo! Please give us a review.
Yes.
Comment with us. We love to interact with you guys. We're hoping to get a couple more authors on in the near future. However, for now, we'll see you next week.
Peace out.
Peace
Make
out.
sure you go follow Casey.
Yes.
Oh, shit, yeah. Go follow her. She's really
Go.
nice.
She's amazing. And go read her book. Do
Yes.
You'll be in
Peace
for
out.
a treat. YOLO.